That's it.
So you actually know what you're allowed to tell us or not?
Yes.
Yes, everybody else wasn't sure.
Have they been saying, well, we're not sure? Yeah.
So they erred on the side of caution.
That's good. That's what I told them to do.
So what can you tell us about the rest of the season?
Yay!
Hi.
There we go.
You're going to sit
Wait,
with me?
no.
Okay.
Yeah.
Awesome.
Either one, yeah.
So, what can we tell them about the rest of the season is the question.
It's epic. It's just really, really exciting.
Here's what we can. I'm not gonna. I'll give you a substantive answer. Okay. Not that wasn't.
I thought it was good.
It was good. Always in my mind, the show's been will the 100 be able to overcome that sort of inner conflict, that Lord of the Flies dynamic, in time to survive the bigger external conflict that's coming for them. And at the end of 5, we saw the Grounder. And has anybody seen 6 and 7? Okay, so you know that 6 and 7 really become more Grounder heavy, right? And that goes like exponentially further from now to the finale. And the finale is like,
oh my God,
it's like Braveheart.
It's like a feature film. It's
ridiculous.
So
it's a full-on. They find themselves in the middle of a war, essentially. So
it's right to fear the Grounders.
It is right to fear the Grounders, but you know, nothing's black and white. The Grounders aren't evil. The Grounders think that the 100 are acting provocatively.
It's actually like it's a total miscommunication, really. You know, when you think about it, it's, you know, two groups of people who don't know nothing about each other, who are afraid and threatened by one another. Whereas, I mean, if you brought them together at some point, you would probably see that they're exactly the same. You know?
There's certainly more similarities than there are probably differences.
Yeah.
Or at least there are some. And the truth is, and that's a big episode coming down the road, is episode 9, really, where we ask that very question. We tell the story of that misperception, you know. The Grounders think that we're acting aggressively towards them. We landed in their yard.
Yeah.
We're firing missiles. In 5, they fired missiles. They don't know that those are signs to the Ark.
No.
That looks like they're shooting missiles at us.
Yeah.
So shit gets pretty intense between the Grounders and
it certainly does.
the
Are
100.
we finding out more about the Grounders, like their history in that
absolutely.
episode as well? Or?
About their history? No. What we do find out is that they're all, you know, these, and I think it's safe to say already that the clues are there just by seeing the Grounder at the end of episode 5. He's a warrior. He's got weapons. He's got armor on. These people didn't just start looking like that when these guys arrived, right? They're fighting somebody already. And the question gets asked, who is that? And so by the end of the season, we know who the bad guys are, we know who the worst guys are, and then ultimately we know who the worstest? The worst.
The worst.
So,
My question is, there seems to be kind of 2 stories happening, one on the Ark and one on the planet. Is there going to be a point where those stories actually really become one story?
It's all you, man.
all right. I mean, in my mind, they're always one story.
Yeah.
In my mind, they're always. I totally take your point that they're separate worlds completely, and I wanted that from the beginning. I wanted to play in 2 sandboxes. I wanted the show to have that sort of juxtaposition between this claustrophobic, suffocating spaceship that's dying and this mysterious, wild, exploding with life world on the ground. That was always part of the plan. But to me, they're emotionally connected, obviously, right? Because the people up there are worried about the 100, and the people on the ground are worried about their parents, their loved ones, their friends. And so, to me, they never feel siloed, is the term that we use. You know, Game of Thrones keeps separate worlds happening for entire seasons. These people never connect, and it works dramatically. And I think it's an amazing show, and certainly one that we hold up as a we're not worthy kind of show.
Yeah.
Right? So. But the answer to your question is, despite that, it will become more integrated, certainly, going forward. Communication is established eventually, soon.
Soon, yeah.
She talks to Abby soon, in an amazing episode. I think it's 7.
That was pretty emotional. It was pretty good.
Oh my gosh, filming that was like, I was exhausted after that scene. It was very, very emotional. Although you've written a few of those for me, haven't you?
Yeah.
He's really put me through the ringer.
Clark doesn't have fun.
Yeah. No, when I get scenes where I actually smile, I'm like, oh my god, it's so exciting. It makes it more special.
Less is more.
Yeah, less is more.
The characters have really been, both on the ground and on the arc, their morality's been questioned or pushed, like what limits they have, and you know, especially Bellamy on the ground. But going in episode 7, Clark really makes a difficult choice. So when you're writing it, how did you decide what those limits are and where they go, and then how is it to have Clark kind of have to make a decision?
I think that's one great thing about Clark's arc. That rhymes. I think she does realize that leadership comes with making really, really hard choices and not necessarily the ones that you thought you'd ever have to make. Yeah, it's really difficult for her, but she becomes a much stronger person for it. I really like that, and you see a lot more of that happening throughout the series.
And I think she also starts to, you know, obviously she is furious in so many ways at her mother.
Yeah.
But by the end of the season, she may just start to realize that there are, you know, she's making decisions that are not unlike the decisions that Abby's had to make.
Yes,
so,
totally.
you know, we might see some kind of a reconciliation at some point. Maybe this year, maybe next year. We don't know. But, you know, certainly there's an understanding there. Whether she can see it or not, because, you know, in life, even though it's there right in front of your face, when you're pissed off at your parents or somebody that you love, it's hard to say, yeah, I'm just as bad as you. So that may not happen, but the point is the same. You know, she's figuring out how to be a leader, and sometimes that means you have to do the hard thing. In 7, certainly she does something that's morally questionable. And, you know, the thing I like about it is it doesn't work. You know, like, we're not advocating for torture. It's an anti-torture episode, right?
Yeah.
So, because the torture isn't what gets, I mean,
anything achieved.
Right, it doesn't do it, and so, you know, it's what Octavia does, and she points that out to her at the end of the episode. Anyway, that's really spoilery. That's for 7. So if you guys could like hold your fire on that.
Yeah.
Were there limits though to like? Did you when you were writing? Was there a specific like limit that you knew that you wouldn't take the characters beyond?
No.
Or did you just keep pushing and pushing?
Yeah, that's no.
No, I mean we're trying to surprise ourselves as much as we are the audience. You know, we're trying to, and the actors for sure. I mean, you know, we want the show to live in the same world. I want the show to live in the same world as Game of Thrones and Walking Dead. It's on the CW, it's on broadcast television, the standards are different, we don't have the money, we don't have the freedom to do what they do, and I am jealous as hell about that. But we do
pretty well with what we've got though.
Yeah, and some people are beginning to get that. I was saying before, you know, I like rave reviews, obviously. That's great. Who doesn't? But the best reviews are the ones that say, I thought this show sucked, but now I like it. You know, it's like people are starting to see that we're taking chances. We're not doing, you know, what people expect. And that you can take to the bank will continue. I mean, it's, you know, the killing of Wells and the culling in episode 5 are markers.
I cried like a baby, by the way.
Just watching it?
Just watching it. I bawled my eyes out. The dad with the daughter. I was like, I was there. I met these people.
These guys hadn't seen it.
I hadn't seen episode 5 yet, no.
I got really upset over Wells. What went into that decision?
You know, it's a complicated thing because, being totally honest, Jasper was supposed to die at the end of the pilot.
Yeah.
And I knew that I wanted the show to be a show where nobody was safe and where we were surprising people, and that the decision to spare him was a hard one for me, but he was so good. Every little thing I gave for Devin to do, he just elevated it. And we looked at ourselves, myself and Matt Miller and Gina Girolamo, who were the producers with me on the pilot, and we just knew we had to do it. But we also knew that we needed to have set that marker down relatively early, that nobody was safe. And so it became how do we make that statement in the biggest way? And obviously it was, if the chancellor's son could die, then anybody could die. You know, and also it was a process of trying to buy him back, you know, because in the pilot he comes off as a little bit, you know, he's the guy that nobody, he frankly, probably faulting myself, it's not, he doesn't have the most to do in the pilot. And so by 2 and 3, we really bought him back. You know, we find out that he was basically taking the fall.
Just when you fall in love with him.
Yeah, only to pop him. So, you know, that's what went into it. It was how could we, you know, get the most bang for our buck.
Yeah.